So we are back in the games room and it's time for some pickups from Japan. I did do a video last month, so the pickups are stacking up. So this will be kind of a long one, or longer than normal. So do bear with me on this one, but I guarantee there are some absolutely fantastic shooters in this one. Definitely ones that you would like to play, and there are some sort of average mech games in there, which quite possibly you really wouldn't care about. And of course there's some right crap in there too. There's some games that literally you will never want to play, and yeah, why not have a look at them anyway? You know, why not, eh? So let's have a look over there. There's the games all stacked up there nicely. So let's do the intro stuff and get cracking, shall we? Let's start off with the Megadrive and Darius Extra version. I don't generally pay too much attention to some of these newer games on older consoles, but in this case I should have done. This one actually came out in 2020 and I picked up the Columbia Circle version, which came out in Japan, and I believe Strictly Limited Games brought out a version in North America and Europe. It wasn't until I saw the Smups Junkie video of Mega Drive shooters that I thought, damn, I need to pick this one up. And you've probably seen some more influences later as well from that video, I can't deny. But yes, found out that M2 were involved in this one, so you know it's going to be a high quality port. I don't know where it started off, whether it was sort of fan-based improvements and then M2 got involved. But certainly there's collaboration with Taito themselves, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job. Typical for M2, there's loads of options to tinker around with, but the extended version seems to be the definitive version, and they made some nice improvements there, including respawning, which normally I don't like, but in this case you need it because the game is damn tough. And of course the electric fan boss is still in there. Yes, bit of a nod there to the Rainbow Islands challenge. Sticking with the Mega Drive, next up is G-Lock Air Battle. I really didn't have too much expectations for G-Lock, no one really talks about it. Yes, it is part of the Afterburner series. It did pretty well in the arcades, but no one really talks about the home ports. And I mainly got it because the box art, it's pretty cool, the Japanese box art, and also the price as well. It was pretty dirt cheap, so I thought, why not give it a go? And to be honest with you, it's not too bad at all. I was quite pleasantly surprised with it. The game is very simple. It's kind of mission based rather than surviving a level. So the idea is you've got to shoot down a certain amount of enemies within a certain period of time, and you're given limited resources to do so. So you've only got a limited number of missiles you can use. You can die as many times as you want, but when your clock runs out of time, it's game over. Okay, it's not as good as Afterburner 2, but yeah, still this is a fun game, and for the price, why not? Next up, we've got another shooter. It's Aeroblasters. Another bit of influence by the Smups Junkie on this one too. So yes, I am planning to get the Mega Drive shooters, or majority of them anyway, but this one I was planning to probably miss this one. I do have it on the PC Engine already, and thought, there's probably no need to get this one. But then he mentioned that it's actually better than that version, and that version is pretty damn good. I thought, okay, I'm going to double dip. And I probably have to agree with him on this one too. This is an absolute fantastic shooter, a real masterpiece on the Mega Drive, but my god, I've forgotten how difficult it is. This is a tough one. This is not for beginners. The weapon upgrade system is a challenge to say the least. Some people like it, but I'm not a big fan of it. Certain enemies, if you defeat them, they're sort of dispersed from it, but not in a sort of nice fashion. They are literally flung around the screen, and it's just like, yeah, good luck finding the one you want. The gameplay is extremely fast paced, and you will definitely notice that when you do the tunnel levels. My god, they are difficult to navigate, but very rewarding when you do so. It's actually probably one of the more affordable shooters on the system too. Mind you, that doesn't really say much. Some of the money that these shooters go for is kind of insane. But yeah, it's a pretty damn good shooter and definitely recommend it. The last Mega Drive shooter I picked up was Slap Fight MD. This Tower Plan classic was on my list to pick up for quite a long time now. But after watching the Shmups Junkies video, it did get expedited. Big time. What's really notable about this game is its weapons upgrade system. You pick up stars, and similar to Grady's, you get to actually choose what loadouts you'll get literally strapped onto your spaceship. It literally gets bolted on, and your hitbox grows depending on what weapons you've decided to add onto your spaceship. So there's a real risk-reward element to the gameplay. What is the appropriate loadout for the particular stage of the level? First impression, you probably think it's a very simple shooter, but this one definitely grows on you. It's very addictive. It is an absolutely fantastic shooter. But the price is not fantastic. It is expensive. Luckily, I got one from Yahoo Auctions for a fraction of what you see on eBay, so don't believe some of the prices out there. Let's get our feet firmly back on the ground with the Sega Saturn and the Sega Touring Car Championship. Okay, yes, how do I describe this one? Well, it is an arcade racer of some type. I guess you can still classify it as that. But it is as poor as what everybody says. It's not a good game. And I'm looking sort of gaps in my driving games on the Sega Saturn, and for obvious reasons I never wanted to pay money for this game, but I saw it in Japan and it was absolutely dirt cheap. We're talking about a couple of pounds, and I thought, why not torture myself? And actually I think it was James the Import Gamer, he had this game and he mentioned that if you use the analog controller, it drastically improves it. And he's got a point. If you do use the analog controller, you can actually sort of control the car, so that's kind of a good thing. So it goes from being an absolute bag of shite to just a little bit of shite. Next up is Hang On GP 95. Yeah, don't worry, there will be some better Sega Saturn games in a minute, but yes, exactly the same reasons as I picked up the Sega Touring Car Championship. I wanted to fill another gap, which is this one. Again, exactly the same price, only a couple of bucks for this one. So I wasn't really risking much on this, but I'm actually kind of surprised. It's not too bad at all. Visually, it's not too bad for 95, and actually even the playability, I mean, it's not too bad. It's fairly fun. But the controllers, yes, it's not quite there, but it was never going to work fully without an analog stick, and unfortunately for some reason the analog stick doesn't work. Well, my controller doesn't anyway, but it does seem to advertise the fact that you've got some sort of steering wheel that you can use it with, so maybe that works. And also there's only a couple of tracks as well, which is a little bit disappointed, but not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Next up is Kurin Pa. You know how I mentioned there's going to be better Saturn games? Well, just wait a little bit longer, it's not this one. I was being a little bit adventurous with my choices. I was looking for some cheap games with interesting covers, and this one had a sweaty snowman on the front of it, so I thought, you know, sod it, let's give it a go. It's a puzzle game, it can't be too bad. And to be honest with you, it's not too bad at all. Originally I was going to say it's something like Baku Baku, but it's not. It's only like Baku Baku because they sort of munch in a line similar to the Fuse. So how do you describe it? It's a fuse and bomb game where you sort of line up bombs and fuses, and then you have fire to set bombs off and blow up the blocks of snowmen that drop down from your enemy. That's all it is, right? Yeah, another fantastic review, and it's not too bad, but it's kind of difficult. I never won a single match, and kind of frustrating. But give it a shot if you want. It's cheap. Why not? Next up is another Sega Saturn I cannot pronounce. It's got some people on the cover. That's about it. Yeah, have a look on the screen, you'll see the full name there. So again, I didn't know too much about this one. It was just a cheap game that was a puzzle game. Looked interesting. Why not? Let's give it a go, shall we? I didn't bother to have a look online to actually see how to play it, so it took me a while to actually realise. I was putting lovely colours all together in a row and then sort of wondering why they weren't disappearing. It's actually a sandwich game. You've got to sandwich the colours in between the same colour. For example, you need to sandwich 2 reds either side of a yellow or whatever. Gotta say, after you actually figure that out, it is kind of fun, especially working out some diagonals. It's definitely a change of mindset from a Puyo Puyo game, and I recommend this one. It is kind of fun. Okay, here it is, Capcom Arcade Action on the Saturn, Warriors of Fate. This was not just on the Saturn, it was also on the PlayStation 1, but it's absolutely criminal that they did not release this in the West. It only got a Japanese release for both the Saturn and the PS1. This really came out during the golden age of Capcom brawlers. I actually have a PCB of this, but not an original, it's a conversion. The CPS 1.5 boards, like Punisher, they're extremely expensive. Everything about this game screams absolutely Capcom quality. It's an absolutely belting brawler. It's fairly simple. There's only 3 buttons, 2 basic attacks, which depending on your characters and depending on if you're on horseback or not. And there's also a special attack, which some people hate. It's that classic powered attack that actually uses some of your health. So a bit of a risk-reward element when you get to use that one. What does distinguish the game from most people, or at least they remember the game, is the fact that you start off on horseback, which is a little bit different than other Capcom brawlers at the time, which is quite cool. It's cool to plow through the enemy, but you sometimes do get ahead of yourself a little bit at times with the horse. And you can also steal a horse later on. There's some end-level bosses that you can sort of knock off their horse and steal it, which is always fun. In typical Capcom fashion, there are barrels to break and weapons to pick up. And where would you be without that classic floor food to replenish your health? Absolute no-brainer for Capcom brawler fans. Okay, let's finish off with a Saturn shooter, Strikers 1945 2. This is an exclusive on the Japanese Saturn. It did come out on the PlayStation 1, but for these shooters, Saturn is my choice of console. It did actually come out in North America on the PlayStation 1, but did the normal name-changing gag where they called it Strikers 1945, and also they missed a couple of the options, including the vertical mode, which is a crime against humanity, really, isn't it? For me, this is hands down the best game in the 1945 series. Yes, it even beats the mighty Neo Geo's 1945 Plus. Pains me to say it, but yes, this is clearly the best game in the series. They really upped their game on this one. They balanced it out, you added more ships. The other additions include the charge bar on the bottom left hand side corner of the screen, which slowly fills up when you do damage or you kill enemies, and this actually contributes to the power of your charge shot. So the 3 colors, green, yellow and red, they contribute to the level of the charge shot, and each charge shot actually depends on the ship that you actually choose. They also introduced the medals, which is kind of confusing, but depending on how far away you are when they actually glow, when you reveal them, it depends on how much score you'll get when you pick them up. This is a top shooter, but you need to play it in vertical mode. Okay, let's move on to the PC Engine and a little bit of Bakusho Yoshimoto no Shingeki. There you go, some pretty fine butchery done there. But this game is kind of a strange one. I think it's based on some sort of comedy show. Very strange introduction where you just get the absolute crap beaten out of you by everybody else that stars in this game. I don't know if the plan is you've got to go out and seek revenge or what, but it's kind of a platformer stroke mini game, if you know what I mean. You kind of traverse the level from left to right, avoiding objects and jumping on different characters' heads until you get to a sort of main section where you see one of the main characters, and that sort of triggers some sort of mini game. Most of the mini games are fairly simple and easy to follow. They tend to be like rhythm games where you just follow the directions, kind of similar that you see in the dancing in a minute. And also there's a very strange game which I'm trying to work out how to play. I think it's paper, scissors, stones with hot pizza. On the whole, this game is relatively playable. Language isn't too much of a barrier in it, and it's a fairly cheap game. But it's not one you're going to go back to time and time again, is it? Next up is a game that's completely unplayable unless you learn Japanese. It is Shin Megami Tensei. Let's face it, this one isn't going to get played, but my daughters are huge fans of the series. So if I ever see a Shin Megami game, I do tend to pick it up. And it's on the PC Engine, of course I was going to pick it up. Sticking with the theme of games that won't get played, we've got Quest of the Young Master. So I only really got this one because it's part of the subset. It's one of these games with the that need the arcade additional memory. I'm trying for a full set there, but yeah, I just realised that Sapphire isn't that subset, so maybe that's not realistically going to happen. But I got this one anyway. Strangely enough, I did actually pick this game up on the MVS a couple months ago as well. So that's two versions of the same game I'm not going to actually play. Yeah, not bad. Next up, we've got a bit of Hue card action with the Delivery Boy. I picked it up as part of the Tonkin House subset, but I was kind of hoping, from the screenshots at least, that this would be playable. And for the most part, it is playable. But the question is, do you really want to play it? And the answer is probably no, not really. In my head, I had a sort of fast-paced, modern version of Paperboy. But in reality, it's just follow the rules of the road. It's very dry and very boring. If it picks up later on in the game, do let me know. But from what I can see, yeah, this is one that you're not going to be playing ever. And we're scraping the barrel, it's MG. Another cheap one that's just purely picked up as part of a subset and to fill the shipping box for better games that I'm yet to show. But I was kind of surprised by this one. Was expecting the worst, and it is actually kind of playable. When I first started the game, I thought it was going to be some sort of RPG, but once I clicked through a few of the scenes, yeah, it turned out to be a bit of a sort of platformer shooter type of game. A very poor one, but still a sort of platformer shooter. Some of the worst graphics to grace the PC Engine, but at least you can kind of navigate and actually play it. I'm not sure that you would want to play it for more than 2 seconds, but at least you can have that option if you're willing to do that. But I did come into a bit of a problem. Water was my problem, and it killed me, and then after that I didn't want to play it anymore. Okay, let's move on to the proper PC Engine games. Zero Wing. Finally showing you something decent on the PC Engine, and you're probably familiar with this one already because of the Megadrive version, which is kind of famous for a couple of lines which are actually missing from the PC Engine version, unfortunately. In fact, in general, the Megadrive version is the more superior version, unless you like the CD music, or there's also additional level as well in this version that there's not in the Megadrive. That's about it. While it may not be the best port of the game, it's still an absolutely fantastic game on the PC Engine and well worth picking up. It's one of the cheaper shooters as well, which is always a good thing. But the great thing about this game is it's fairly simple. It's an easy game to pick up, certainly in the early levels. The cool mechanics of the game is the ability to actually pick up smaller enemy ships and actually use them as shields, which is kind of fun. For me, where this game really stands out is the large, colourful sprites for the enemy bosses, the fantastic level design. This is real classic Tower Plan stuff. And also, don't forget about that legendary soundtrack. It's absolutely awesome on the PC Engine. Definitely worth picking up. We're down to the last game. It's Super Darius 2. So it's almost like we've gone full circle here. We started with one of the world's greatest fishing games, and we're going to end with one too. Similar to Zero Wing, there's a bit of double dip action going on with this one. Yeah, I've got a lot of nostalgia for this one on the Mega Drive. The Super Darius 2 is one I imported back in the day, and it was absolutely fantastic. Such a good game. So I wasn't too bothered about getting this one, but I am closing in on all the shooters on the PC Engine. Realistically, I'm not really going to be able to achieve that one because of the price of some of these games, but there's only 4 I still need to get, and 2 of those realistically I could get, leaving just 2, and then we'll just see what happens after that. Plus, I've got to mention that there's one that I haven't shown yet. There's a big hitter, which will get its own separate video. But I've got to say, this is a pretty damn fine port on the PC Engine. Graphically, it's absolutely stunning with the sprites, pretty well detailed, and the colours extremely vibrant, a lot more colourful than the Mega Drive version. But the backgrounds at times do feel a little bit sparse, a little bit more parallax scrolling. Would have been quite nice. But I've got to mention the soundtrack is absolutely awesome on the PC Engine. A little bit of the Lords of Thunder vibe going on there too. And that's the lot. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found something interesting in there. There's a few belters like Slap Fight and 1945 too. Great games. A few were there to avoid as well, unless you really want to torture yourself. On that note, I'll be thanking you again, and I'll be seeing you later.